The auction hall smelled of cold stone, old blood, and fear. Astra stood in the center of it all, barefoot, trembling, wrapped in a torn white ceremonial dress that made her look more like a ghost than a bride. She clutched the frayed fabric to her chest, trying to steady her breath as hundreds of wolves in human form crowded the towering chamber. Their whispers slithered through the air like claws against glass. Tonight wasn't a celebration. It was a transaction. Her guardian. No, she corrected herself bitterly. Her seller had traded her life to erase a gambling debt, and the Bloodfang Pack had paid well for her. Enough gold to make betrayal feel cheap. A slow pounding of drums began at the far end of the hall. Deep, rhythmic, ancient. The sound vibrated through the walls, through Astra's skin, through the marrow of her bones. The Bloodfangs had always liked their ceremonies loud, as if drowning out the screams of their previous brides somehow sanctified the ritual. Astra kept her chin lifted, though her throat felt carved from ice. She had known fear before, hunger, cold, cruelty, but nothing like this. Not the fear of death, but something worse. The fear of being owned, caged, broken. The drums grew louder, and then he appeared. Lord Varric Thorncrest stepped forward, the crowd parting around him like prey clearing a path for a predator. Broad-shouldered, armored in black leather carved with blood-red runes, he moved with the deliberate ease of a man who knew exactly what he could take and who would never be denied. His smile curled like smoke. "A pretty purchase," he drawled, loud enough that the crowd tittered. "Let's hope you last longer than the last one." A hush rippled across the room. Astra's stomach tightened. Everyone knew the stories. His previous mates had died during the claiming bite, each one chalked up to unfortunate weakness. No one dared question him. The Bloodfang Pack ruled their territory through fear and force. Tonight, she was simply the next name on the list of women who would never see the dawn. Her wolf, usually quiet, faint, barely a whisper in the back of her mind, suddenly screamed awake. A snarl of raw terror and instinct ripped through her consciousness. "Run. Run now or die." Astra's knees nearly buckled. She forced herself to breathe, but the sound of her heartbeat was thunder in her ears. She scanned the hall, desperate. There were no windows, no open doors. Guards lined the walls like statues carved from violence. There was no escape. Unless... Her gaze snagged on someone near the far pillar. A man, alone, detached. He didn't wear pack colors, didn't watch the ceremony, didn't even seem to care that an entire hall of wolves waited for blood. He read a book, a simple, black-bound volume resting in one hand while his dark hair fell across his face. His clothes were travel-worn, unadorned, and out of place among the rigid ceremonial attire surrounding him. A stranger, a rogue, an outsider. And outsiders had no stake in pack politics. Astra's breath hitched. Something inside her, maybe desperation, maybe instinct, maybe the last flicker of hope, lurched toward an impossible idea. A loophole. A dangerous, reckless, ancient loophole whispered in old stories, barely remembered. A public claiming could override any contract, but only if she acted first. Astra felt the drums pounding inside her skull. Felt Varric's eyes on her like a butcher choosing a knife. Her wolf didn't whisper this time. It roared. "Move!" Astra ran. The crowd gasped as she shoved past them, her bare feet slapping against cold stone, her torn dress fluttering behind her like broken wings. Shouts erupted. Someone tried to grab her arm, but she twisted free, fueled by something feral and terrified and utterly determined. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She launched herself toward the lone stranger. He looked up, finally noticing the chaos as Astra slammed into him. His book fell from his hand, thudding against the floor, as she grabbed his face with trembling fingers. For a single heartbeat, she saw his expression. Confusion. Shock. Eyes the color of storm clouds. Then she kissed him. The entire hall froze. The sound cut out. The drums stopped. Even her heartbeat seemed to halt mid-thunder. Astra pressed her lips to his. Desperate. Terrified. Clinging to him like he was the only lifeline in a collapsing world. She felt the warmth of him. The steadiness of him. The startled tension of a man who had absolutely not planned to be dragged into anyone's destiny today. But something else happened, too. Something impossible. A surge of heat, no, power, ignited between them. Silver and black lightning crackled along her spine, as if the kiss had awakened a sleeping storm. Gasps rippled across the hall. When Astra pulled back, breathless, she saw it. His eyes, once storm gray, now blazed with streaks of silver and black fire, swirling like a cosmic eclipse. He stared at her, stunned. Behind them, Varric roared. Guards shouted. The crowd erupted into pandemonium. But Astra could only hear the stranger's voice, low, shaken, edged with something ancient and dangerous. What have you done? And deep in her bones, Astra realized the truth. Whatever she'd just invoked, it was bigger than escape, bigger than law, bigger than anything she understood. Because the man she had claimed, the one she had kissed to save her life, was no ordinary stranger, and the power waking inside him was answering something buried deep inside her, something that should have stayed asleep. For a long heartbeat after Astra tore herself away from the stranger's lips, silence ruled the hall. Then, the world erupted. Varric Thorncrest's roar cracked across the chamber like a thunderclap. Bring her back! The crowd flinched at the sound. Even seasoned warriors stepped back as the Bloodfang Alpha shoved forward, fury twisting his scarred face. That girl was bought property, he growled. Mine. Return her now. Or he didn't finish the threat. Because the stranger the man Astra had kissed in a moment of blind, frantic instinct shifted. Not his body, not into wolf form, but something deeper. A quiet sharpening of the air around him. A subtle darkening, as if the light itself hesitated to touch him. He stepped between Astra and Varric with a calm so cold it felt like ice spreading across the floor. Property? The stranger said softly. She doesn't look like property to me. The words were mild. The danger underneath them was not. For the first time in his life, Varric Thorncrest hesitated. Astra felt it too, this strange pressure. Like the stranger was gravity and the whole room had no choice but to bend toward him. But Varric wasn't a man who backed down easily. Stand aside, rogue, he snarled, unless you'd like to die today. The stranger tilted his head slightly, as though studying an insect that had started shouting. Rogue, he murmured. Interesting assumption. Then the hall erupted again, this time in fear, not fury. Someone gasped. Someone screamed. Someone dropped to their knees. Because on the stranger's neck, where Astra's lips had touched his skin, a symbol now burned. A silver-black crescent, glowing in a pulse like a second heartbeat. The moon mark. The goddess's seal of true mates. The crowd stumbled back, whispering, terrified. A public claiming had been made. The goddess had answered it. That meant one thing. Astra had invoked a law older than any kingdom. No, Varric whispered, stepping back. No, this is impossible. She's no one. Apparently not, the stranger replied, the faintest edge of amusement in his voice. Chaos swept the room, only to crash into a wall of absolute stillness when he turned toward Astra. He didn't touch her. He didn't have to. His voice found her anyway. Quiet, focused, meant only for her. If you stay, he said, you die. Come, Astra didn't think. Her body moved before her breath returned. She took his offered hand, and the moment their fingers touched, the moon mark on his neck flashed brighter. They ran. Whispers turned to shouts. Shouts to orders. Varric's guards lunged, but the stranger cut through the chaos with effortless precision, pulling Astra through a shadowed archway she hadn't noticed before. Then the hall was gone. A passage opened into the night air, and waiting at the base of the stone steps was a carriage as black as the void between stars. Its metalwork shimmered faintly with runes she didn't recognize. Ancient, elegant, humming with concealed power. Not crafted. Conjured. The stranger opened the door and guided her inside with a gentleness that made Astra's heart stumble. The moment the door shut, the carriage lurched forward, gliding so smoothly it felt like floating. Only then did Astra realize she was alone with him in the small space. Breath sharp, pulse racing, fingers still tingling where he'd held her. He leaned back against the opposite seat, his breathing steady, his expression unreadable. His eyes, dark gray, streaked with silver, still crackling from the kiss, watched her with a calm intensity that made heat flood her chest. After a moment, he spoke. "My name is Riven." The sound of it felt wrong somehow. Or rather, it felt like an alias, a name that hid more than it revealed. But Astra didn't have the strength or the courage to question him yet. She swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. "Astra." He nodded once. "Astra," he repeated, tasting the name like a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. For a long moment, nothing in the carriage moved but the flickering lantern and the shadows sliding along the walls. Astra stared at her hands to keep from staring at him, but even that didn't help because her wrist suddenly burned. Not pain. Fire. She sucked in a breath as silver light blossomed beneath her skin, curling in swirling patterns that looked like frost kissed by moonlight. Riven's eyes snapped to the glow. His expression changed. Not fear, not anger. Recognition. "No," he breathed. "Not possible." Astra pressed her hand against her wrist, panicked. "What is it? What's happening to me?" Riven didn't answer immediately. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, but she didn't. His fingers brushed her wrist, and the light brightened, spiraling faster. He inhaled sharply. "Bond marks," he said finally. His voice was low, rough, like gravel under silk. They're forming." Astra's heart stuttered. "I don't understand." Riven looked at her the way a man looks at an oncoming storm. Beautiful, deadly, inevitable. "Bond marks," he repeated, "only appear between destined mates." Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. "That can't be. I didn't mean... I just needed to stop him." "Yes," Riven said quietly. "I know." There was no anger in his voice, no accusation, just a deep, steadying gravity that felt like the calm inside a hurricane. "But the goddess doesn't care about your intentions," he said. "She cares about the act. You kissed me in public. You claimed me by ancient law, and now..." He leaned back, running a hand through his dark hair in a gesture of disbelief and reluctant resignation. "Now the goddess seems inclined to agree with you." Astra stared at the glowing marks, her pulse frantic. "So, it's true? I can't undo this?" Riven's gaze lifted to hers. Something complicated flickered in his eyes. Surprise, tension, a hint of awe he couldn't quite hide. "You," he said softly, "are a disaster wrapped in moonlight." He exhaled slowly. "And no," he finished, "we can't undo this." The carriage continued through the night, carrying a runaway girl with power awakening beneath her skin, and a man who was not the rogue she thought he was. Not by a long shot. The carriage hadn't traveled far before Astra felt it a prickle of danger crawling up her spine, sharp and immediate. Riven felt it too. His gaze snapped toward the window, his eyes narrowing, all traces of calm dissolving into something cold and predatory. "They're following us," he said. The words had barely left his mouth when a violent crash shook the carriage. The horses, if they were horses at all, screeched. The wheels skidded. The entire world tilted as the carriage lurched sideways. Astra barely had time to brace herself. Riven was already on his feet. "Stay behind me," he said, voice low, edged with command so absolute it vibrated in her bones. Before Astra could speak, the carriage door ripped clean off its hinges, a massive Bloodfang warrior filling the frame, snarling, with fangs fully extended. Behind him, more shadows moved among the twisted trees, at least a dozen. They had found her. Not just warriors. Hunters. Riven moved like a shadow breaking free of its anchor. Astra barely saw him leap before he collided with the first attacker, and the two of them exploded into the night. The forest swallowed them whole. Astra staggered out of the ruined carriage, her breath catching as moonlight revealed the nightmare around her. Tall pines, jagged shadows, Bloodfang warriors stepping out from behind trees with cruel smiles. "Pretty little runaway," one of them hissed. "The alpha wants his property back." Astra backed away, heart hammering. Her wolf shrieked inside her, frantic, but useless. She had never shifted, never even felt close. She was defenseless. One warrior lunged, and Astra screamed, not in fear and something deeper, hotter, older. Silver fire erupted from her palms. Not flames. Light. Pure, burning moonlight that tore through the attacking wolf before he could touch her. His body disintegrated into ash that blew away on the wind, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. Astra stared at her hands. Silver tendrils curled along her fingers, dancing like living magic. What was that?" Her voice shook. The Bloodfang warriors froze, their bravado flickering. What did she just... But none of them had time to finish the thought. Because a massive black wolf, taller than any alpha wolf, larger than any creature she'd ever heard of, burst out of the shadows. Fur like living smoke, eyes of molten gold, power radiating from him in waves that made even the trees seem to bend away. Riven. Not a man. Not a wolf. Something more. He struck down two warriors before they could react. Each impact a crack of force that echoed through the clearing. The rest stumbled back, trembling not in fear of Astra now, but of him. Astra had never witnessed such raw power, such effortless, terrifying grace. The shadows themselves moved with him, coiling around his form, amplifying his presence. And the Bloodfang warriors, some of the fiercest fighters in the kingdom, fell to their knees. Not one knee. Both. Heads bowed, spines shaking. Riven, the stranger she had kissed, growled, low and reverberating, a sound that thrummed through the earth, a sound no rogue could ever command. Astra felt her heartbeat stutter. "What?" she whispered. "What are you?" Riven shifted. It didn't happen the way it did for ordinary wolves. No cracking bones, no tearing skin. One moment he was a nightmare of shadow and fang. The next, he stood before her as a man again, fully clothed, untouched by dirt or blood, unbothered by violence. His hair fell around his face in dark waves. His eyes still glowed faint gold, but his expression was something she had never seen in another living being. Fear. But not for himself. "Astra," he murmured, his voice low. "Your hands." She looked down again. Silver fire still flickered across her palms, fading slowly, but not completely. Riven exhaled sharply, stepping closer. "Moonfire," he said. "The rarest magic to ever exist." Astra blinked, breath unsteady. I've never... "No one has," Riven said. Not in 20 years. His voice dropped. Because the last person who wielded it was the heir to the Silverborn dynasty, an entire royal line slaughtered to extinction. He stared at her like she was both a miracle and a threat to everything he knew. You're not just a runaway, he whispered. You are something impossible. Astra shook her head. I don't understand. I'm nobody. I grew up in a village. My guardian, your guardian hid you, Riven said, and did it so well even I didn't know what you were. A low whine came from behind them. Bloodfang warriors bowing even deeper, unable to lift their heads under Riven's presence. Astra finally noticed the pattern. Not one warrior dared move. Not one attacked. Every single one submitted. To him, a cold realization slid through her veins. Riven, why are they kneeling? Why are they... He sighed, just once, like a man accepting the inevitable. Astra, he said carefully, I am not a rogue. I was never a rogue. Her heart stopped. I am Riven Draythorn, he said. The Shadow King. The world tilted. The king? Astra choked out. I kissed the king? I claimed the king? Her voice hitched on panic. Riven's expression softened just barely. Yes, he said quietly. You did. Astra's head spun. I claimed the king. A whisper. A confession. A dawning horror. And worse, Riven added, stepping toward her with eyes that glowed brighter than moonlight. The goddess answered. The bond marks on her wrist flared, silver swirling like liquid stars beneath her skin. Astra pressed her hand to her chest as her wolf rose inside her, not in fear, but in recognition. She had not just invoked ancient law. She had tied herself to the most powerful wolf in the known realms, the Shadow King. And now there was no turning back. The forest swallowed them in a hush of moonlit branches, guiding the two of them deeper into the Starfall woods until the world felt impossibly quiet. Far too quiet for what had just happened. Riven led Astra to a secluded hunting lodge tucked between ancient pines, a place that seemed older than the trees themselves. It smelled like cedar smoke and forgotten secrets. A single lantern glowed faintly inside, casting warm light across the wooden walls. Only after Riven closed the door behind them did Astra's trembling stop long enough for the pain to reach her. A shallow cut along her shoulder, left by one of Varric's warriors before the moonfire saved her, had begun to sting from the cold. Riven noticed instantly. Sit, he said, his voice softer than it had been all night, yet still threaded with command. Astra lowered herself onto a bench near the hearth, breath unsteady as Riven moved closer. He knelt before her, not like a king, not like the shadow sovereign everyone feared, but like a man trying to steady something fragile and breakable. His hands were warm as he cleaned the wound, precise, controlled, gentle in a way that contradicted everything she'd seen him do in battle. You should have stayed in the carriage, he murmured. She tried to smile. It exploded. His lips twitched, the closest thing she'd seen to amusement. As he wrapped a bandage around her shoulder, Astra felt memories pulse inside her, quick flashes, disjointed and slippery, as if something inside her had begun to wake. A silver tower, a woman with star-white hair, hands tucking her into bed while a lullaby hummed through the dark. Her breath hitched. Riven. I think I'm remembering things I shouldn't be able to remember. His hands stilled. Show me. Astra hesitated. Then she tugged the torn neckline of her dress to the side, revealing the mark on her shoulder, something she'd always believed was a simple birthmark. A crescent moon. Small. Delicate. Perfectly shaped. Riven froze. Every drop of color drained from his face. Astra. His voice broke, barely audible. That's not a birthmark. She blinked. What do you mean? His gaze lifted to hers, filled with awe and dread in equal measure. It is a royal seal. The air shifted. The fire crackled louder. Astra's world tilted. A seal? She whispered. For what? Riven rose slowly to his feet, stepping back as if he needed distance to process what he was seeing. For the Silverborn dynasty, he said. The moon-blessed rulers of the Eastern Kingdom. The royal bloodline that controlled the light magic your moonfire comes from. Astra shook her head. That's ancient history. The Silverborn dynasty was wiped out. Everyone knows that. Yes, Riven said quietly. Wiped out 20 years ago, when the usurper king overthrew them. He met her eyes. Astra, you were that child. The one who disappeared the night of the massacre. The heir, everyone believed, died in the fire. Her breath turned to ice. No, she whispered. No, that can't be true. My parents were farmers. My guardian. Your guardian was your protector, Riven said. Sent to hide you. To keep you alive. Astra felt her lungs tighten, her thoughts unraveling. She remembered the lullaby. She remembered the silver tower. She remembered someone screaming her name through flames. No, she said again, but her voice shook. I can't be. I'm no one. I'm nothing. You are not nothing, Riven said sharply. He stepped closer, his tone low and fierce. You wield moonfire. You awakened a royal seal that should have died with your bloodline. You survived a massacre no child should have survived. His voice gentled. You are the last of the Silverborn. Astra covered her face with her hands. Her heartbeat echoed the drums from the hall, frantic and unsteady. A dynasty. A massacre. A kingdom she never knew she'd lost. And now she was claimed, unintentionally, by the Shadow King himself. The room seemed to sway, but something else, something darker, stirred beyond the lodge walls. Riven suddenly stiffened, head lifting. What is it? Astra whispered. His voice dropped to a dangerous calm. Corruption, he murmured. A scent of magic that does not belong in these woods. Astra felt it too. Something oily, cold, crawling beneath her skin like a whisper with teeth. It's been growing for months, Riven said. An ancient void magic waking from sleep, and now... His eyes narrowed. Now something is wrong in my palace. A chill ran down her spine. Before Astra could speak, a knock echoed through the door. Soft, polite, wrong. Riven's entire posture changed. His power darkened the air. Stay behind me, he said. But Astra didn't need his warning. She could feel it through the cracks in the wood. Something unnatural waited outside. The door opened, and Cyrus Draythorn stood there. Riven's younger brother, handsome, charming, smiling too beautifully. But Astra saw past the smile, past the handsome facade. Something writhed beneath his skin, something oily and black, something that looked back at her. Brother, Cyrus said lightly, as if he hadn't arrived with a dozen elite guards behind him. The Alpha Council is deeply concerned about your little runaway. Riven stepped forward. You have 5 seconds to explain the meaning of this. Cyrus only smiled wider. The council demands the girl, he said sweetly. Apparently she used forbidden magic to claim you. They want her brought in for questioning. That's absurd, Riven snapped. She used ancient law. And the goddess answered, did she? Cyrus tilted his head. Or did she trick you? The accusation hung in the air like a blade. Astra felt her stomach knot. Cyrus took 1 step closer. Come willingly, he murmured, eyes gleaming with a wrongness she could now see clearly. Or be dragged. Riven growled, shadows swirling in the corners of the room. But Astra reached out, resting a hand lightly on his arm. Riven, she whispered, if I go with them... they'll leave you alone. They'll tear you apart, Riven said. You don't know what the council is capable of. Maybe not, Astra whispered. But I know what Varric is capable of. And I know what happens if the council thinks you're hiding me. He looked at her with raw fury and something more, desperate fear for her. Astra managed a small, trembling smile. I'll be okay, she said. I have to do this. Riven's jaw clenched, but he let her go. Astra stepped toward Cyrus, lifting her chin. I'll come willingly. Cyrus's smile sharpened, too sharp to be human. Good girl. And as she crossed the threshold of the lodge, Astra felt the first tremor of destiny settling around her shoulders, heavy as a crown. The lunar sanctum was colder than any cell Astra had imagined. A vast circular chamber carved of moonstone and shadow steel, with a domed ceiling painted to mimic the night sky. It glittered above her like a frozen constellational crown. 12 thrones formed a perfect ring at the center, each representing one of the wolf kingdoms. But Astra's gaze locked on the throne that did not glitter. The throne carved of solid silver crystal. The throne no one sat upon. The Silverborn throne. Empty for 20 years. 2 guards shoved Astra forward, chains rattling around her wrists. The shackles were cold, so cold the metal burned. Void silver, designed to suppress magic, even moonfire. Across the chamber, 11 alphas watched her with narrowed eyes. Their power pressed against her skin like invisible claws. The oldest among them, a woman with iron-gray hair, spoke first. Astravalian, she said, her voice echoing. You stand accused of using forbidden magic to ensnare the Shadow King. Do you deny it? Astra lifted her chin. I deny everything except saving myself. A murmur rippled through the council. Another alpha leaned forward, eyes flashing. The moon mark appeared without a proper claiming bite. That alone proves treachery. It proves desperation, Astra shot back, despite the tremor in her voice. I invoked ancient law to escape being sold like cattle. The room shifted with tension. Astra could feel Riven behind her even from across the chamber, surrounded by guards, forbidden to intervene. His power simmered beneath his skin like a caged storm. Each time she faltered, she felt it a pulse through their bond marks, a silent promise. I'm here! Hold on! But it wasn't enough, not when the alphas wanted her blood. Magic that resists royal command is forbidden, the elder alpha said coolly. Your marks, your flames, your seal, all are unknown to us. Unknown. Astra's pulse skipped. Her seal. Her birthmark. Her inheritance. Before Astra could speak, the Silverborn throne pulsed. Softly at first. Then again, the entire room went still. Cold wind swept across the chamber, carrying the scent of moonlight and memories long buried. The chains on Astra's wrists vibrated violently. What trick is this? One alpha barked. It is no trick. The elder's voice shook not with anger, but with something like dread. The throne recognizes her. The shackles glowed and melted. Void silver liquefied, dripping through Astra's fingers like silver tears. She gasped as sudden warmth surged through her veins, surging upward, pulling her toward the throne. No, she whispered. I don't want. But the throne wanted her. Astra staggered forward, as if 1,000 invisible hands guided her. Riven shouted her name. Guards held him back. Astra reached out, trembling, and her fingers brushed the cold, untouched crystal of the Silverborn seat. The world shattered. Moonlight exploded through her vision. The chamber dissolved into silver fog, and a woman stood before her. Not alive. Not truly dead. A memory made of starlight. Her mother. Astra knew, without question, felt the blood-deep certainty. The queen who had died protecting her. My little star, the woman whispered, cupping Astra's face with hands of shimmering light. You've grown into the power I feared and prayed you'd never need. Astra couldn't breathe. Mother, I don't understand. What am I? The memory smiled sadly. The last Silverborn. The queen who should have ruled. Astra felt the ground tilt beneath her as her mother continued. The prophecy spoke of a union. Shadow and silver. If united in trust, salvation. If broken by fear, annihilation. Astra's heartbeat stumbled. Shadow and silver. Her. Riven. Her mother's voice grew faint as the vision fractured. Beware the void. It seeks to corrupt what it cannot kill. Wait! Astra cried. Don't go, please! But the vision faded, dissolving into shards of moonlight that slipped through her fingers. The sanctum snapped back around her. Astra collapsed to her knees, gasping, and then she heard Cyrus laugh, low, wet, wrong. He stepped forward from the shadows, smiling with that same too perfect, too bright expression. Well, he crooned. Isn't this touching? Astra's stomach twisted. She could feel it now. A pulsing darkness beneath his skin. A parasite wearing a prince's body. Riven moved instantly, shadows crackling around him. Cyrus, back away from her. Cyrus tilted his head. Why? She's our prophecy girl, isn't she? Our little moon-blessed queen. His voice gurgled, and something burst through the surface of his skin. Astra screamed as black veins writhed across Cyrus's face. His eyes went pitch dark. His smile split too wide, too sharp. The void entity tore itself through him like a shadow peeling away from flesh. Finally, it hissed through Cyrus's mouth. The Silverborn awakens. Then it lunged for Riven. The guards scattered. The alphas shouted. Riven met the creature's strike head-on, shadows bursting from his arms like wings of night. The room imploded into chaos. Astra rose unsteadily, moonfire crackling to life at her fingertips. The creature hurled Riven across the chamber, slamming him into stone hard enough to crack it. Riven! Astra cried. He pushed himself up, shadows trembling around him, blood at his mouth. The void shrieked, rushing Astra. She lifted her hands, and moonfire roared to life. The silver blaze collided with the entity, burning through its form. Riven's shadows surged alongside it, twisting with hers. Night and moonlight spiraled together, intertwining like two halves of a storm meant always to merge. Astra felt their powers fuse, felt the bond marks ignite, felt Riven's heartbeat slam into hers. Together, their joined magic struck the creature like a tidal wave of light and darkness. The void shrieked, melting like tar under a rising sun. Cyrus collapsed to the ground as the parasite peeled away, dissolving into smoke. But before it vanished completely, the void's voice whispered through the chamber cold, ancient, hungry. We are only the beginning. Then it was gone, and silence fell, heavy as prophecy, sharp as destiny. Astra stared at Riven across the moonlit chamber, both of them shaking, their powers still entwined like threads no force could unbind. The council looked on, terrified. The throne pulsed behind her, and Astra, the last Silverborn, realized the prophecy wasn't a warning. It was a promise, and it had already begun. The night split open, not with lightning, but with shadow. Above the palace, the sky tore like fabric under too much strain, revealing a churning vortex of blackness where stars had once shone. A storm of shadows spiraled downward in a frenzy of claws and shrieks. The protective barrier around the palace, woven by generations of royal mages, shattered like brittle glass. The void had come for them, and it would not stop. Astra stood on the battlements, wind whipping her hair, silver sparks crawling beneath her skin like burning constellations trying to escape. The air tasted of cold metal and something older than fear. Riven moved to her side, shadows swirling from his hands like smoke torn from midnight. It's happening faster than we expected, he said. Astra stared at the rift splitting wider across the heavens. It wants me, she whispered. It wants the Silverborn, the power inside me. It wants everything, Riven replied. But you're the key. She knew it was true. In the heart of the palace, hidden in the ancient texts and visions left by the queens before her, lay the ritual that could seal the rift or destroy her completely. A last resort meant for one who carried all the moon's faces in her soul. Astra swallowed hard. I can complete the ritual, she said. But if I open myself fully to the Silverborn magic, I won't be human anymore. I don't know if I'll come back. Riven turned to her then, his hands cupping her face, shadows brushing her cheeks like gentle fingertips. Astra, he said softly, fiercely. If you fall into the magic, I will drag you back myself. She met his eyes, storm dark and burning, and felt her heart twist. Promise me, she whispered. I already have, he answered. The ground trembled. A wave of void creatures poured through the broken barrier, twisted forms of living darkness, howling for blood, for magic, for her. Astra nodded once. Then let's end this. They ran toward the throne room. The throne of silver light pulsed as they entered, as if it had been waiting for her. Moonfire crawled along its carved edges, alive and restless. The air hummed with old power, 1,000 forgotten voices whispering through the stone. Riven squeezed her hand once before releasing her. This throne chose you long before I did, he said quietly. But only one of us had a choice. Her breath faltered, then she sat. The moment Astra's body touched the throne, the world detonated into light. Moonfire slammed through her veins. Memories not her own flooded her mind, lives lived centuries before. Battles fought in starlit fields, queens crowned beneath eclipses, sacrifices made in forgotten ages. Astra screamed as her body dissolved into raw magic. She felt herself slipping, her edges blurring, her humanity unraveling thread by trembling thread. Riven, she gasped. Don't let me disappear, please. Her voice cracked. Her vision glowed white. She could feel herself becoming something vast, faceless, endless. A force, not a person. A memory, not Astra. Riven moved instantly. His shadows wrapped around her like a tether to the earth, grounding her, pulling her back each time the throne tried to consume her. Astra, he shouted through the blinding light. Stay with me. Look at me! But she couldn't. Not until the howling began. Not from void creatures, from wolves. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. Riven had sent the king's call, and every wolf across the Shadow Kingdom and beyond answered. The sound washed through the throne room, vibrating through stone, magic, and bone. A chorus of loyalty, of unity, of souls refusing to let their queen go. Astra's eyes snapped open. The moonfire stabilized. Her form held. Her humanity clung to her with a fierce, wild grip. The ritual had begun. The rift pulsed above the palace, shadows spilling out like blood from a wound. And Astra understood, suddenly and painfully, that destruction was not what the void needed. Not death. Not imprisonment, healing. She reached for the moonfire inside her soft, silver ancient and extended it toward the rift. Light unfurled in great spirals, touching the edges of the wound in the sky. Riven stepped beside her, shadows rising like a storm to weave around her moonlight. His magic bound the cracks, while hers healed the tear. Together, shadow and silver merged into something entirely new, something whole. The void creatures shrieked, not in agony, but in recognition, as if they finally remembered what they once were. Their twisted forms shifted, reshaping into tall figures made of silver-streaked darkness, guardians of the realms, the first beings of shadowlight. Astra felt her strength draining, her vision blurring, then quiet. The storm faded. The sky sealed, the guardians bowed, and the realms exhaled. Astra collapsed forward, straight into Riven's arms. He caught her with a sound that was almost a sob. "You're alive," he breathed against her hair. She tried to smile. Barely. He pulled her close, holding her as though afraid she'd disappear again. Later, in the quiet of a sunlit chamber, Astra woke to find Riven sitting beside her, watching her with an emotion she couldn't name. "You came back," he whispered. "You pulled me back," she corrected. He brushed his thumb over her cheek. "Astra, you chose me once in desperation." His voice softened, deepened. "Will you choose me now?" Freely. Her heart answered before her voice could. Astra lifted her hand, cupped his face, and kissed him. Soft. "Sure. Chosen." "Yes," she breathed. "I choose you." Their bond marks flared with silver and black light as they completed the mutual claiming bites, gentle, reverent, sealing their souls together with ancient magic neither could ever break. Shadow and silver, king and queen, chosen by the goddess, chosen by each other. And so a new era began. A realm no longer divided by bloodlines or fear. A kingdom held together by moonfire and shadow, by healing instead of conquest, by two souls who defied prophecy by rewriting it. Astra Silverborn, Riven Draythorn, a queen and king who saved the world, not because they were destined, but because they chose to. If you enjoyed this tale under the moonlit skies, share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what moved you, what surprised you, and what you want to see next. And if you want more stories like this, filled with magic, destiny, love, and danger, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Moonfire Tales. Your support keeps the fire burning.